is on like Donkey Kong. I don't think I've seen that in a long time.
This guy is unstoppable.
This is just out and out chaos.
There's the redemption story.
It's time for Watchpoint.
Welcome to MLG's Watchpoint. Mr. X here with Monty and Uber. And how was your guys' weekend? Usually I ask you about the previous week, but I
talk about things that really matter.
We only have one day off, and I use it to make a podcast anyway. So.
Yeah, I do that as well. No, I just
I don't think you do that. At least I haven't seen it. Could work on the distribution program. For
I got to work on that. It's not going too well.
The secret one. Maybe that's just your highlight reel for the future. No, I mean, we had an interesting week, right? I think week 3 was like that week of epic, 5-map series. I feel like this week we now got to see a little bit more of those mismatched affairs, I think, in general. So a couple teams sort of get slammed down. I personally a little bit disappointed with San Francisco getting crushed the way they did by London. There were a couple of matches there from teams that were just not great.
The Dragons against Philly, that was a heartbreaker. Goes all the way to the end.
For the second time, by the way. The second time we get a 5th map.
I was upstairs watching
Shanghai
it, and as soon as Game 5 started, I ran down to the crowd with Sideshow and Brett, and we were just like, oh no.
And they mess it up on the last map. And again, that map 5, or that 4th map, should I say, that would give them map 5 is like their attack is really not good, right? Same happened to Florida on 66, and obviously we saw that against Philly. However, as Stage 3 barrels towards its conclusion, we're going to break down everything that happened in Week 4. First, here are your biggest stories in 90 seconds.
Former teammates, now opponents. You got Fissure versus Gesture, the battle of the main tanks.
The Gladiators spent all week living on the edge, picking up 2 tight 5-map victories over the Spitfire and Outlaws.
That was a great match from the Gladiators.
Keep their stage playoff hopes alive.
Fissure knocking everybody back. Gladiators get 2 wins this week. They're still in the playoff hunt.
The Valiant remained in playoff contention, losing to Houston before bouncing back to defeat the Mayhem.
No hope here for Florida, and it ends 3-1.
Philadelphia's turbulent stage continued as the Stage 2 finalists were defeated by Seoul.
Seoul Dynasty wins it somehow, some way.
Before being taken to a 5th map by still winless Shanghai.
It will be the Philadelphia Fusion picking up the win. Shanghai Dragons 0-28.
After dropping their first map of the week, the NYXL got back to their dominant ways.
And New York stave off a plucky San Francisco shock. That was an exciting series.
Finishing off San Francisco 3-1, then crushing the Seoul Dynasty 4-0.
Seoul go out not with a roar, but with a whimper. And New York continue to cement their spot as the top team in the world.
And Boston continued to cruise through Stage 3.
It is over. Boston uprising at the end.
Picking up victories over Shanghai and Dallas to remain unbeaten in the stage on their way to a record 12th straight victory.
Boston continues to be the team to watch in the Overwatch League.
So here's where all of that leaves us for the Stage 3 standings. Boston are out in front with that undefeated record, but the NYXL are close behind, and they actually have a better map differential. Teams 3 through 9 are all mathematically still alive for those last 2 spots, and currently the Valiant are in 3rd, but I think we're starting to see some of the cracks show for this team. In fact, it's funny, the title of the most recent Inside the LA Valiant episode was Honeymoon is Over, at the end of the honeymoon period,
I wonder if we had predicted that this would happen.
I believe it was
with every
mentioned.
team.
I believe it was mentioned, but I mean, one of my biggest questions is I definitely think that Custer coming on board is definitely not weakening this team. We know Space is an incredible, flex tank player to come onto this roster, but I wonder if Soon is the answer to all these top-class Widowmakers in the league. Obviously, this guy was a Tracer player, and he has some great moments, to be honest, through the week. But there were also some where I felt like he was not able to get much done. Obviously, his performance on Anubis there was a bit rough. Florida manhandled him. Kasaya player was definitely the better Widow in that series.
I think that, honestly, their biggest problem right now, because they have such a strong tank line, like you're mentioning, and the supports are doing their jobs too. For me, it's their DPS. And it's not like any of their DPS players are inherently bad. If you look at them individually, they're fine.
Yep.
I just think that they really lack a flexible DPS player who can play both Genji and Widowmaker. Because if Bunny could play all the time and they had another guy who could swap between those two on this map pool, I think that empowers them a lot. So I feel like their biggest drawback is that their players don't have the right hero pools.
It's almost like if you remember back with how the Gladiators were with their DPS rotation, it was really obvious what they were going to play with certain players in the game. But now Surefour, right? I mean, he has a great Widowmaker. You know he can play Genji as well. He can play other hit scan heroes. So it allows you to mix it up a little bit. I think
it's like a less difficult version of what the LA Valiant have in terms of setup. They can flex that way.
Yeah, and if we talk about some of their DPS players, there's also an issue with Bunny. And it's not that Bunny isn't an amazing player. It's that, and he is a plug-and-play player with them because he's an independent operator.
I love that.
He's in the back line, disrupting the supports. But I think as we see, his stats are dipping in losses, which is understandable. But I think we're going to see this trend continue to have a bigger gulf. Because remember, in Stage 3, he played against all of the easier teams first. Valiant's going to have another week here where they're playing against more difficult teams, and teams that are highly coordinated will shut this kind of play down. They will zone him off the supports. He's going to look good against weaker teams, but I think when he goes against the stronger teams in the league, his stats aren't really going to live up to that because he's just not working with the rest of his team, which is his style, and it's a thing that works for him, but at this level of competition, it becomes hard to really crack that at the highest level.
I think going against those supports on the top teams who can fight for themselves and they don't need as much help in that back line, you're really going to see some of the numbers like they were there.
In all fairness, Paris still has the lowest deaths for flex support players or Zenyatta players in the Overwatch League. So, you know, he is fending for himself or being fended for.
Yeah. But I want to talk about the other LA team. I want to talk about the Gladiators. They're looking really strong right now. And I kind of touched on it earlier. I feel like Surefour on this Widowmaker has been tremendous. He has been a huge difference maker for this team. You know, his stats obviously, getting much better. You saw, I think it was Fissure in that roundtable. He said he kind of got on Surefour that he wasn't a great Widowmaker.
He put him on blast.
I did.
And you've seen his play be much better since then.
I did ask Surefour specifically what that meant.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't tell me exactly what Fissure said, but he did tell me that it was enough to convince him. It was. He said, I believe he said, Fissure is very frank with his opinions.
I love that.
Whether good or bad.
Kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits. It did motivate him in a certain way to
I imagine how it went down.
That Widow a lot more.
It's like.
It's great now.
Yeah, they probably sat for like a team meeting and like everyone was like, oh, well, what's wrong? And Fissure was just like, oh, I don't think we can play Widowmaker at a high level. And Surefour was like, I can play Widow. And he's like,
what he said in the roundtable. He says in the roundtable, he said, I put him on blast. I said, we don't have a great Widowmaker player right now. I think it's what he said.
And he probably just stared at him.
I mean, yeah, he possibly just overheard it or something.
Well, speaking of players that have learned new heroes, I want to talk about hydration on the Sombra because this actually has come out really clutch on Oasis in particular in the past couple of matches. You see it here on Blizzard World as well. But hydration has been excellent at finding hacking targets, and the Gladiators have been a team ever since Stage 1 and 2 that knew how to play around Sombra before the changes because we'd see a lot more Sombra from the Shock and the Gladiators with Surefour and Dante. But now it's Hydration who's learned this. And I've talked to Hydration's former coach on CLG, Cuddles, before, and he's always been an advocate of Hydration can learn any hero in a very short amount of time. Great work ethic, grinds the ladder. And I think we're really seeing that because on those Oasis maps, he has been really clutch in helping Gladiators pull out those tight wins.
And just to tack on very quickly to that, I think having Sombra on maps where you can stall out for the entire round is really important because you want to just try and clean them off the point, right? And quite often we have people just running in. So Sombra being able to prevent mobility, and sort of ground people and make sure they can't stall it is great. But moving on to a team that isn't looking so great, the Seoul Dynasty. They did get a win this week against the Fusion in, honestly, one of the ugliest defensive matches of the
it was
week.
horrible.
But in the much anticipated MIXL match, they then just got dumpstered 4-0. So again, a week where we learn very little about Seoul Dynasty because they look average in a win and absent in a loss. I mean, they look
absent
like
in a win. Yeah. Neither Philly nor Seoul showed up to that match, to be blunt.
I mean, and you know what? I saw like Seoul Shanghai in Stage 1 was actually the same. We've actually seen it from these guys before. Identity crisis, I think it's clear to say. When we talk about Seoul, we go like, who's the more aggressive flex tank or who's the more, what's the better support pairing? We actually just don't know because we just don't get any information about it.
Tell me what's this team's playstyle? What's Seoul's playstyle? Like, are they a dive team? Are they defensive? Like,
I mean, here's a crazy fact for you. Like, Okay, we see Seoul play against London, who 4-0s them twice. London's playing a very aggressive dive style, targeting their backline. Okay, they lose to London. Hard.
Yeah.
Then they play the Houston Outlaws. They barely win with without Linkser in stage 1. They lose to Houston, probably the most defensive team we have in this league, was playing Junkrat Widowmaker in stage 2. So what is Seoul's strength? Like, I don't even know.
I wonder if this is a fundamental thing now as well. If it's like a fundamental communication, or players are disagreeing on philosophy, or is it mechanical? Is it a mechanical difference? Obviously, with Fleta, it's probably not a problem.
Well,
but even Fleta's playing passive.
I would say when you have Fleta, you need to let him be aggressive. I think, when we casted that match, he was just playing a little bit too passive for that match against NYXL. You needed him to play a little bit more aggressive. And this is really a position he was playing for pretty much the entire game. Right now, it's just the end, right, where it's going into overtime. You can see him take the shot over the building. But right here, you see him take the position on the cart, like by that truck. He needs to, potentially challenge Pine up on that high ground. He takes one shot at him. And then, he just there's not really much he can do from that position.
He didn't want to peek it again, right? Because he took a hit from Pine.
And then he backs all the way out. But that's a position he was playing pretty much that entire half in that overtime push. And if you're there, he's their best player, right? He's the one who needs to get those picks and open that up. How many Widowmakers we see go around that left side? You can't play that back truck position.
Well, the thing is like, in order to get the better Widowmaker position behind the bunker, you move forward off of the truck, your Tracer player has to be contesting the upper hall. And that's where most Tracer players go, because if you let the enemy Widow stand in the windows of that hallway, you're never going to be able to cross towards the point and take position. So that's a teamwork mistake. That's a tactical mistake that Seoul is making.
If the Widowmaker's up in that window on the top right, and then you send everybody left, and the supports can't cross because the Widow's just going to kill them.
You have to fight that Widow back.
Pine also had a very aggressive position for Widowmakers on that map, because when you play on that causeway, that little walkway, you're playing quite deep. Like, a lot of Widows we actually see just go back through the control room and peek on the top or down the bottom of the corner.
But Pine was up there because he's not even worried about getting peeked by anybody. He had no pressure on him the entire time.
Yeah, you have to put pressure on that position if you ever want to approach that point. But another problem Seoul's been having has been that their supports, they have 4 supports now that they're alternating, and we're going to take a look at Jaehong and Toby in particular, because they were the ones playing in the last match versus the XL. And you look at stage 2, they played a 5-game series. Toby and Jaehong, deaths per 10 minutes, has now gone up between stage 2 and stage 3. And it was bad in stage 2. They were getting specifically targeted. And the thing is, Seoul repeatedly plays New York and London back-to-back. And London is the better dive team between New York and London, as long as they're running Bird Ring, has to be said. But the last time we saw New York sort of deconstructed Seoul, and then the next match, London comes in and says, "Oh, we can do that better," and then just dives them,
they do it differently,
4-0s them. And the supports have to be helped in this scenario. And it's hard to say what exactly is wrong with this team, because what you say about Fleta is true, but do we know that Fleta doesn't want to play more aggressively? Maybe he's scared because his tanks aren't peeling for him.
Or
we don't
just
know.
have no confidence in.
Does Fleta just not feel that the tanks are going to peel, and he just wants to sit back and near the supports, right?
Fun fact as well, supports probably aren't feeling confident, because in that series, Dronak had 16 deaths on Zenyatta and Jaehong had 36. So he was
ridiculous.
Hounded. On the plus side, though, there is a bright side to this. We just need to go to the other team. New York looks like they are back to bossing out, preparing for their opponents. I actually thought the defense on Route 66 against Seoul was a really good example. This is like a tortoise formation, a really passive setup. We could roll the clip and see that New York aren't playing aggressively. Look at Pine, really tight angle, not even playing the high ground, really. He does go up, Miro dives on, immediately gets bursted down. We saw the peel back from Meko to get on that high ground. And look, Seoul are moving so slowly. This was the opening for Fleta. He could have had a pick here, doesn't find anything. And slowly, he walks closer and closer to Big Earls. He doesn't go back up to the top left to try and take on Pine 1v1 at any stage here. And what he does, he commits himself with the rest of his team to grouping up. New York see this, right? They're getting ready to rotate around the side of Big Earls. There's a tickle there, Munchkin. Now they start to push in. Fleta now is in a terrible spot for Widowmaker, and he now he's flatter, by the way. He gets jumped on top of by Mano, and that's it, game over. So just got completely enveloped by New York playing this defense.
I don't know why you go into Big Earls when you're playing around the Widowmaker there.
Because you don't want to risk grappling up and taking on Pine.
But you have to. If you're going to play Widow versus Widow, you have to take the duel. But then don't play it then. I know Pine, I feel like he has improved as a player from stage 1 to now. I know the stats don't really reflect it because he's playing much more, but just his impact on the game. And you can see there, the clips that we showed, right? They just don't want to challenge him because you're so scared scared that he's just gonna pop off and hit like 2-3 headshots in any push. But if you don't challenge him, there's not a great chance to make anything happen anyway.
I mean, this was later on in that Route 66 fight that I sort of pointed out. Eventually, Pine gets to sort of unleash and play forward. So I think that Seoul didn't quite know how to figure out New York. I think New York definitely had some tailored approaches to this series. I think that defense was one of them. They are using Seoul's passive nature against them.
I think yeah, exactly. I think it's not even passive. I think it's purely indecisive. Like we said, there isn't a flavor, there isn't a color, there isn't a style that we can really throw Seoul into. It's very confusing match to match. They're changing their tactics. Yep. And if you're going to be, and players, and if you're going to be indecisive, what New York was doing was just standing next to them and forcing Seoul to open an angle and play aggressively. They weren't making any aggressive plays. So New York was just sitting there saying, like, come on, come at us.
And I would love to see Seoul for just 1 week, like, commit to a strong dive. I feel like they can really put it together. Munchkin's Tracers looked good. You know, Miro started to put it together.
By the way, Flood and Munchkin have looked great this stage.
Right.
On an individual level, this is probably Munchkin's best performance of the season, this stage.
And I mean, Flood as Genji is unreal when he plays it. But week 4 was action-packed. Let's take a look at some of the best WoW moments. This is Didn't See That Coming. I want to start off with EQO with a really long rip tire here on Junkertown for the 2K versus the Dragons. I was so mad when I was watching this upstairs. I was like, how does nobody hear this on the Dragons? It comes all the way from the spawn and makes it out to kill Dia and Alter.
Yeah, I mean, did I just hear Dia fire at it? I think he did fire that rip tire, but that's how you go coast to coast. Nah, maybe you should spot that out. Anyway, Sky, this was awesome, actually. I really love this. On Ilios, this guy just comes up with this big brain snipe over the top, a bit of a leap up, and look, he gets it around the Orisa barrier. It's like that Wanted movie. He's curving bullets and balls. He actually gets it behind onto the Mercy, by the way, the most important pick there. You can't ask for much more than that. That's sensational.
I'm just happy we're seeing more Sky now. Ever since he joined the team, we haven't seen as much of him, but now recently he's been coming back. But here is that same match, same play.
This is why they don't need to fight, by the way, off that pick from Sky.
Yeah, Note with a chain flick onto the Tracer dash. Very nice pickup on the kill.
Yeah, it's a really nice prediction there by Note. Staying with the Boston Uprising, we got Striker, another rip tire. This one against the Dallas Fuel. Goes high up in the sky to take out Harry Hook. I know this is the infamous Orisa offensive attack here on Anubis from the Dallas Fuel. Doesn't exactly work out.
We listened to your feedback. We heard you guys love Rip Tire, and we're just going to get more and more of it as time goes on. But here's something a bit different. Seagull. Now, this actually happened. This happens sometimes, right? This is pretty unexpected. I believe there's a name for it, but Seagull gets stuck with it, tries to get out, and Harry is in valve. And that is obviously the second time he dies mid-valve. Sort of in 2 clips. So
Harry Hook had a rough week.
Not by his own decision making, of course.
Oh, that just happens.
This was absolutely insane. This 4K from Saya Player on a map that they lost was just ridiculous. I think Saya Player had something like a 34% crit accuracy on Junkertown.
That's twice what we think is good.
Yeah, 19% is very good. 34% is unreal.
It's Jake on Route 66, hiding here with a smaller version of a rip tire, a pulse bomb. He's just watching players walk by. I was so nervous he was not going to hit this on the Surefire. I was actually pretty happy for Jake that he actually ends up making this one work out. Sees the grappling look, no Surefire can't go anywhere from that. Sticks it right on him.
Patience pays. He finds the important pick. Surefire, though, with some Route 66 sneaking on his own. Gets behind Jesse here. I guess he didn't see him. He just trundles off. Surefire gets the headshot, open up, couple shots, and bobs your uncle.
I just like the Winston noise.
Yeah.
And here is Sinatra from the Shock, who is going to run circles around Hureg. Can't even find him at all. Misses that flashbang, dashing right back and forth, so forcing him to 180. Brutal kill.
I hate that. This is crazy so much.
They got to do a Hureg game set match by like a 150 DPI there as Jonak with a May 3K. Well, look, if May is a difference maker in stage 4, you definitely don't want to see this as Jonak just comes out the spawn, sniping fools there on Anubis.
I mean, May is hugely impactful, but not necessarily because of this kind of stuff in these situations.
Yeah.
Jonak showing us another thing he's got up his sleeve. You love to see it. Didn't see that coming, but that shock match against New York on Thursday pitted a young San Francisco team against one of the most well-coordinated teams in the league. We take a closer listen to how these teams communicated during this pivotal match for the stage standings in our latest edition of Inside the Comms.
New York, we got the shock. The match is ready.
San Francisco Shock definitely have a big task in front of them, and it's NYXL.
So our coaches did a lot of counter-stratting, like watching over New York's previous VODs, and we felt that we'd have a good shot running a lot of like really defensive comps.
If they dive on Dante, that he jumps back, we get the heals to him, and if they get on Sleepy, make sure you matrix him and give him beam.
조금 더 손보라를 많이 생각했죠, 다른 팀들에 비해서. 왜냐하면 단테 선수가 손보라를 잘하는 선수기도 하고.
The San Francisco Shock are pressuring the backline of NYXL into making decisions they just don't want to make.
수비에서 고전을 많이 했는데 그 이유는 제가 봤을 때는 2포인트에서 이제 상대가 정크렛 손보라를 조합을 쓴 게 좀 약간 저희가 생각하지 못한 좀 큰 변수였던 것 같아요. 그러니까
겐지 힘든데? 근데 톨 아니요 팔아도 나쁘진 않긴 한데 쟤네 픽 바꿀 것 같아.
Architect packed the Sombra when he was in caves, and then that's when comms got really hectic.
저희가 모든 준비했던 조합들이 약간 카운터 당한 그런 느낌이라서.
Libero had his Genji blade for a very
He
long
held it
time,
for several
and
fights.
our plan was Sleepy, do not pop this Transcendence until he uses blade.
Save that Trent.
Don't have my res now. We have a tire for next. They still have that blade.
San Francisco Shock starting to put the pressure on now. Let's go.
Nice job.
Map 1, they're going to rock them, and San Francisco Shock them. What a way to start the series.
I didn't feed. Nice. And we won the map. Let's go. Don't feed for 3 more maps and we win. Super.
Ash, get it.
Going into Numbani, we had a more Mercy strat we were gonna pull out with Genji.
그리고 저희가 준비를 많이 했던 게 겐지 트레이서, 손보라 트레이서 상대였기 때문에 좀 대처를 잘 할 수 있었던 것 같아요.
But their entire backline was so uncontested that entire time. It was really hard to deal with.
It was bad. We probably should have gone fair there.
People dropping like flies here from San Francisco.
It's as simple as that. Ain't no messing here at 1-1.
All right, boys. This is winnable. This is winnable.
Let's get it.
Let us get it.
We weren't that aggressive when we got into the ball, but it came down to the last fight.
It's whether they can weather this fight. This fight's going to be the difference.
Dante was like 97% to an EMP, but Jonak ended up killing him before he got that, and ended up just winning that fight because we couldn't touch the point. So we were really close, but we lost it.
They can't get back to the point. The Shock disengaged for a split second, and they give the round and map over to New York.
정커타운 들어가기 전에는 아키텍트 선수가 좀 많이 귀찮았거든요. 잘 쏘고. 예, 아무래도 팀원들의 합이 맞아가지고 좀 살짝 버스트한 감이 없지 않아 있는 것 같은데.
Oh, there it is! The infrasight.
Then I got greedy, and I pushed up aggressively with my whole hog, which ended up getting me killed.
Let's go.
That just kind of stopped our push.
Now it's just Nomi hung on to try and delay this one out, but no chance.
좀 개인적으로 조사를 좀 많이 하고 좀 연구를 많이 하고 그러다 보니까 좀 이겼을 때 좀 더 뿌듯했던 것 같아요. 예를 들어 뭐.
Even though we lost, I'm not too beat down about it because I think we had a really strong showing. I think we're excited for what's to come.
Yeah.
It's tough for any Mercy player to stack up against Arc. You see, Moth had over 1,000 less healing per 10, and he died significantly more than Arc did in this match. He did have more offensive assists, but the NYXL supports continue to be among the best in the league.
You got to go 2x2 into Arc, Monty. The only way to get rid of him. I'm just saying.
Well played, well played. Very, very nice. Maybe you'll get the first win in Attack or Defend. 'Cause this is the point of the show, every show, where we get to see Uber and Mr. X compete for my approval and sick reference game.
Yeah, that's it. Straight fire.
It's Attack or Defend. And we'll begin with the Los Angeles Valiant. We talked earlier about the holes we're seeing in the Valiant's DPS players, but the same isn't really true for their tank duo of Fate and Space when you look at the numbers. Fate is a top 5 Winston in Stage 3 in terms of hero damage and eliminations per 10 minutes, and he's second in the league in those crucial objective kills. You pair that with Space, who is top 5 in all major diva categories and has the 6th best final blows to deaths ratio of any player in the league. And the point is, Fate and Space are the best tank duo in the league right now. Mr. X, you can be up first this time.
He hasn't told me what he's going with, by the way.
Or defend.
I'm going to attack this. I think that Mono and Meko are the best tank combination in the league. I think they just work so well together, and they give you a lot of options. I know Mono can play Reinhardt at a high level. He can also play some of the off tanks in those double off tank setups, which we don't see a lot from the Los Angeles Valiant.
Yeah, Roadhog's
we
pretty
don't
hard,
see
man. Yeah.
Fate play Roadhog. Yeah, Roadhog's very difficult. Mitch knows playing Roadhog at a gold level, but I know it's very difficult. I would still say with the guys on. I would still say at the guys.
Do I get a chance to talk? Or
You do. Once I'm done, I would still say Mano and Meko, better combination.
Well, I defend that. I think they've got the least like flex support deaths in the league. I think they are. I think you can see it there. Like kill to death ratio is very, very good for space. I didn't get any time to debate this at all. So give him the win. He needs a free one.
I guess as you're
coming in with a new strategy,
him pitting wins, I have to go with that. I'm surprised nobody mentioned that some of the hardest games for Valiant are yet to come. They didn't have to play New York this stage, so stats are going to look a little bit better.
It's pretty hard to lose when you just pick the best teams, tank duo, and go. Yeah, that's great. I actually think the Valiant's tanks are vastly better than the DPS in performance.
Yeah, no, I would agree.
Honestly, we can also talk about Gladiators or Boston when it comes to best tank duo as well. But let's move on. Next up, the Dallas Fuel have just one win this stage over Shanghai. They have just 6 wins all season, and the list of out-of-game drama with this team grows longer each week. Though it does seem to have stopped, at least this last week, I will say that. Taking into account how hyped the Fuel were coming into Overwatch League, the point will be that the Dallas Fuel is the hardest team to be a fan of right now. Uber, you can start. Attack or defend?
I mean, I will defend this. I think it's kind of annoying to be a Seoul fan because the performance is so much lower than expectation. But Dallas Fuel, expectation is low when people are still being disappointed. I think that's the problem. When there is any sort of transparency, it's not the right transparency. Your star player doesn't want to be here. He just keeps going home, and we don't know if he's been sick or not. The players can't stop tweeting silly things, even to. I think Timey made a tweet. I think he was having a crack at a previous player of the roster for no reason. You were talking smack about me on stream.
I'm going to take this. I'm going to say the Seoul Dynasty are, because they fall into that frustrating spot of teams where they're good enough to beat everybody at the bottom, but not good enough to win at the top. So you kind of know the ultimate end of this team already. It's probably a very difficult one to be a fan of.
I'm going to go ahead and give this to Uber here because I think it's harder because at least the Seoul isn't creating their own drama factory to go along with this, which makes it more agonizing.
They don't have a lot of transparency about what Seoul's up to there. They don't tell you tons, but people seem to be okay with that because they're not a freaking dumpster fire.
Fair enough. All right, last one. On Saturday, we saw an interesting sign in the crowd emulating the commendation cards you see at the end of Overwatch games. Uber got the most commends on this sign and was declared MVP. You got all of them, got all 12. Nice job. Mr. X, Uber being the most commendable caster, attack or defend?
Who actually stays for those cards? I'm going to attack this. I know nobody stays to vote, and if they all vote, nobody all votes for the same person. Yeah, it's ridiculous. You would have had to have 12 people in this lobby stay for those cards to vote for him. We know that's a lie. You guys play at home. Some of you guys play at home. You know that's a lie. That ain't going to happen. Look at that face, too.
I love the face. Anyway,
I
Uber.
abstain. I just abstain.
I abstain.
Generally speaking, I think, I'm spitting straight fire all the time.
95% of the match spitting fire.
I deliver consistent quality, and I carry him kicking and screaming through every
Well, I'm only allowed to talk 5% of the time. You're spitting fire 95% of the time.
You'll notice, by the way, that card had no analysts or color commentators at all. It was all play-by-play and so-y. So I don't know how I feel about that.
Side with the color commentators.
I'm going to side with the color commentators as one myself. Clear bias. Also, you know why you lost.
I've won again.
Yeah, because we talked for 55 freaking seconds.
No, I didn't.
No.
Why don't it?
You didn't shave again.
I thought it was okay. I should have left it a little bit, I just want to give a shadow. Otherwise, I look like
come on, man. I looked like we got 10 minutes earlier.
All right, guys. That's what attack or defend. The Boston Uprising's unprecedented 12-match win streak has everyone talking, including their opponents. We sat down with a few teams to find out why they think Boston keeps winning and how good they really are.
Boston now has the record for consecutive match victories at 12.
Stage 1, everyone was kind of sleeping on them, but even in scrims, we knew they were going to be good. We knew with time when they matured, they were going to be really good.
Boston now jumps up to 8-0 here in Stage 3. Perfect so far.
일어나는 변수에 따라서 포지션을 바꾼다든지 아니면 포커싱을 바꾼다든지 그런 거에 굉장히 능한 것 같아요.
Boston, unstoppable juggernaut.
They have some key players that really do fit into their playstyle and how they synergize as a team.
Boston all-star players across the board for them.
They are looking so good.
감수 선수도 거기에 꿀리지 않게 팀적으로 되게 많이 같이 이루어지고 조화가 된 듯한 느낌?
Gamsu with the primal rage may just be able to do it.
The reason I think Gamsu is really good, he's not relying on divas or like a lot of healing. Everything he does is very calculated.
This is bonkers. Kills left and right.
Striker has that like X factor where you have an idea of how you want to take the fight, and then all of a sudden Striker just like gets kills that he shouldn't get.
Oh, it's a stick! Striker, what a throw to start this attack with.
Definitely, for me, Striker is one of the best wrestlers in the league, probably the best maybe.
He's definitely an argument for best tracer in Overwatch League right now.
Striker yet again a kill with the pulse bomb. The man just can't miss.
미스테이크 선수가 들어오면서 좀 약간 처음에는 이 선수가 정말 잘할 수 있을까라는 느낌 들었고.
And he pulls out his Dragon Blade reflect kill. He's going crazy on this Genji now.
Everyone kind of thought that Boston was relying like on their former lineup.
Yeah.
And when mistakes came in, people were like, once again, underrating Boston. And mistakes has performed extremely well.
There we go. For those of you doubting mistakes, yeah, buddy, 3 quick kills.
어느 정도 진짜 이제 롱런을 하고 지금까지 스테이지 3까지 오면서 이제는 진짜 체력 싸움이기 때문에 아무도 모르겠고 아직 최강은 아닌 것 같다.
Boston continues to be the team to watch.
보스턴의 타이틀 매치 우승은 솔직히 반반 정도라고 봐요. 그러니까
I think both Nixel and Boston have a really good chance to win.
It's hard to bet against Nixel, but I would like to see Boston win just because of like the storyline is really nice.
Now the question of whether they can keep this unbeaten streak going.
So, this 12-match win streak for Boston is the longest in the league's admittedly short history. They've had 7 of those matches go to 5 maps though, and 3 of the 12 wins have come against New York, Seoul, and London, making the Uprising the only team with wins over those 3. And with this all-powerful remote, I can be a top EDM artist. Harder, better, faster, shorter. And I can run us through the moments from week 4
I can't possibly
that
get
had
shorter.
the Twitch
I was
chat
wondering why
going
it was
off
shrinking every week.
with emotes. It's emote control. We'll start today with some comms. So listen up. From the Gladiators versus Outlaws match, and there's a bit of confusion here, gentlemen. Mentalgens, listen up.
I'm just gonna
What do right side? What do right side? Monkey contest, we don't. Break the shield.
That's not have no rest.
Looking for them.
Yeah, back. Be sure.
They use wall. I'm not going. What? I'm doing it. Monkey headshot on point.
Point. I'm on point.
Shot me in the back. No. Yeah. We see 9. Yeah, we see 9. We see 9.
No, we want.
Oh,
yeah,
they see 9.
Yeah, they see 9.
Okay, thank you. Hey!
And then they realized it was Houston. Love to see it, gentlemen. Even they had to second guess themselves.
I choose to believe this was all in sarcasm at first. Somebody was trying to trick their own teammates that they had C9. I mean, honestly, this is just the chaos of Overwatch. Like, it's very hard for the players to communicate every single ability that's going to be used. So sometimes you don't even know who's C9ing. It just happens.
How they had to have known they won. Shaz is using Transcendence on the card. He doesn't leave it the entire time. How would he think they C9? He's alive as well. It's weird.
Vishu initially said something about it. He like put his head back. Was like, no, because he used a self-destruct. And the 2 supports are like, oh, I don't know. Mickey shows us some magic tricks. This guy's got it all. Get you a man that knows how to produce some moments like this. What a legend.
I adore this. We're gonna give this a lull. I just had a good laugh out of it. I love these moments. I mean, we've seen so many good moments in terms of walkouts or these on-camera bits before, and Mickey's just lovely.
Yeah, this is hilarious. I love Mickey. This is why I love, some of the players that joke around on the stage or in the entrances. Swoosh comes to mind, right, for the mayhem. I think, All-Star Break, we have to have some kind of competition between all these players so you can come up with the best thing on stage or walk out.
Well, moving on, gentlemen. Here's Carpe and Snillo still working on that team synergy.
I'm trying to figure out what's going on. I'm just staring at him.
He's just not having it. Poor Snillo.
Oh, and then he pulls it away.
So valid.
This is
Snillo.
I like how he's just staring at his hand, trying to figure out what's going on. Finally, they make it work, but definitely a bit of a troll moment from there at the beginning from Carpe.
Oh, how can you take a poor advantage of poor little Snillo like that? Carpe's staring at him and he knows Snillo's freaking out like he's not sure what to do.
Yo, hit his tab. Let me see those.
Making him go.
To be fair, if this happened during that Philly Soul game, I probably would have been staring at Snillo in the same way. Like, what the hell is actually going on with our attack rounds?
Yeah. Not the greatest, but yeah, classic moment there. Carpe being Carpe. Here's, this is Zephyr trying to get outside. This is a brutal stagger.
This stagger is so juicy, like the Ruckus booty. I love this. It's probably the longest stagger we've seen.
I think so.
Double blocking with a tank on Anubis. I mean, there's nowhere to go here. It's so long he even gets his mech back, but he doesn't want to recall his mech because it's just going to make it take longer in the end.
I mean, you almost think you're better off, like, yeah, you get staggered once again.
You could also hear, I think it was the Winston at the beginning, like the excuse me for dropping in line, like right as he gets to the doorway, which is at first probably like, oh no, there's no way.
That's why you always have to use the how embarrassing Winston these moments. Excuse me.
Excuse me. This one was even more interesting. This is Torbjorn when he's not at his day job. All right. Banana hammock and all.
Is this what you're like on your days off?
Yeah, the same shade of pink as well.
I really enjoy this. I think this is a great sign. More signs that I think spice up the background. Makes it fun for everybody.
Ultimate reality.
I was very confused by this sign, but I did enjoy it. I enjoy all of the signs except for the one that said Mitch was the MVP or whatever that sign. That sign was okay.
I don't know if you've seen
this sign was definitely better.
My Tumblr poll with like 400 participants. I'm definitely MVP. So I don't
know how you have all this time to make all those accounts.
Check this out. Pine is really got the knife game apparently. Look at this hand-eye coordination. I would never try this.
I love this, and also this is that trick that's probably most famous from Aliens, the movie, when the android Bishop does it. I think this is absolutely incredible, showing his hand-eye coordination. By the way, if you've ever tried to do that, so when I first saw this clip, I thought he would just be going slowly, but he ramps it up to an extremely fast speed, and that is very difficult to do.
Is there anything Pine can't do? I'm gonna go with a bone face MLG PogChamp here, because this is pretty dope. I know autograph signing, right? He just shows up, somebody hands him a pen. He's like, watch this, I'll sign something and then I'll do this amazing trick.
He's a straight baller. Straight baller. There you go, though. That was emote control, guys. It's been a fun week for that kind of stuff, even if we haven't always had the closest and most epic affairs and matches. We've had a couple days to cool down from a relatively hectic week 4, and with that, we're able to offer some hindsight. Will the Honourable Mr. Rex please stand up and start us off?
Is he a judge now?
Why, thank you. Thank you. No, I shouldn't be judging anything. But in hindsight, I was wrong about some of the lack of competition or balance I thought that was going to be in the Overwatch League at the beginning. You know, coming into the season, you thought that Seoul, London, and New York were going to be the clear top 3 teams. You know, they were just going to kind of barrel on through Overwatch League. Couldn't have been more wrong. We've seen every team really, you know, outside of maybe 1 or 2, get better throughout the entire year. The competition getting much closer. It's awesome to see.
So in hindsight, I was actually wrong about some of the improvement of the Houston Outlaws tracer play from Linkser and Jake. Statistically, they haven't really moved the needle from Stage 3 compared to what they were in Stage 1 and 2. And that means that Arhan's addition may not be that impactful, but for a strange reason. The Houston Outlaws really excel on their team play, ultimate efficiency, and coordination. And so their tracer play from the eye test looks better because they're figuring out traps. They're figuring out how to lurk with these tracers in interesting ways that win fights, even though they might not be mechanically or individually as strong. Now, them bringing in Arhan, who is probably the better tracer than Jake or Linkser in this instance, may seem to fans like it will help, but they're going to lose a lot of that in-game communication due to language difficulties and coordination, synergy that they've been managing to build out. So I think it's really a trade of one thing for another, and that's going to result in sort of net parity for the Houston Outlaws overall. Until we see them once again in a meta, which really suits them, I'm not sure we're going to see the Houston Outlaws getting a lot better.
And for my hindsight, I think it's quite possible that the London Spitfire may not be this vulnerable ever again, as they have been in, weeks 3 and 4, at least not for some time. With Birdring rotating out of the roster and Hureg now doing a lot more play, getting a lot more playtime than he was used to, a couple of teams were able to exploit that to their advantage, especially teams featuring strong Widowmaker players. We definitely saw towards the end of week 3 that Hureg was struggling in that role, especially in the one-on-ones. However, a couple of teams failed to capitalize on this at all, namely the San Francisco Shock this week, and prior, it was the Los Angeles Valiant. They didn't have a chance to exploit that. The Valiant, obviously, perhaps without a super strong Widowmaker, one trick, as we'll put it, on their team. And I think the time of shields being down for the London Spitfire is over, and now they're going to be coming back to strength as Hureg is also looking to improve, with Birdring coming back in very soon. And that's going to be it for MLG's Watchpoint. Check out our Watchpoint preview show on Tuesday at 11 p.m. Eastern Time or 8 p.m. Pacific Time on overwatchleague.com or the Overwatch League app. Thanks for watching. Week 5 coming up. A big week. Don't miss any of it. We'll see you there.